All right, hello YouTube. We've got our first ever comic book review here on my channel. My name is Robert Conway. Maybe you've listened to my live streams. Maybe you remember me from when I wrote for Reaction when that was a thing. We have issue 12 of Batman Beyond. It's part of a huge backlog of books that I've been trying to read off and on. Now, a few things about this book is this is actually a bit of a filler issue. Back when DC Rebirth took off, I had missed out on reading all the issues in the first story arc, so I kind of jumped in late. So, instead of starting my reviews with issue 9, I jumped in with issue 12 because that way I didn't have to go into the backstory. With that being said, from what I saw in issues 9, 10, and 11, it was actually pretty solid. If you get the chance, it's called The Demon Lives. It kind of gives you status quo update on a very certain Bat family member in the not so distant future. Now, with issue 12 here, as I said with the other ones, this issue is not written by the same creative team. Dan Jurgens writes on that one, and this one we have Orlando and Ayala that are sharing the writing duties. Before we jump into the cover here, this is a Dave Johnson cover. Dave Johnson I actually got to meet a few years ago at my old local comic book store, the one I went to before I moved. And he's a pretty good artist, pretty well known, especially for his covers. Now, we'll go ahead and take in the look here. This is our Batgirl Beyond, if you would. And this issue is called Batwomen Beyond. And kind of spend some time focusing on some of the supporting characters. Barbara Gordon, who followed in her father's footsteps and became Commissioner Gordon. And Max, who's a classmate friend of Terry McGinnis, and as well as this new Batgirl. So, let's jump in here. We got some pretty standard exposition here. You can judge for yourself. I would say the art is pretty solid. Of course, just about anything's going to be good. I've not had a very good discerning eye for discussing art. Maybe that's something I will get better at as I do some of these reviews. We've got the new Batgirl hanging out with her friends. The interesting thing I would say about Batman Beyond is, in many ways, it's a teen book. It's a book that's going to focus on... Let me turn back to that page. If you ever watch the animated series, it's something where most of the characters were in high school. They were teenagers and what have you. And I think some of that had to do with the fact that it was a kids show at that time. Doesn't feel like a teen book per se. These characters seem to have appeal beyond that demographic, or at least they feel more fleshed out than what you would expect in sort of a teen series. And as you read on here, our new Batgirl, she I guess she was introduced earlier. As I said, I kind of missed a lot of the earlier issues, And, it seems like she was sort of passed on that mantle. A few interesting things to note about it is she comes from a different part of Gotham. She doesn't seem to trust Batman in a sense. So I guess Batman doesn't really make his presence known in that part of Gotham. Neo Gotham, I should say. Anyways, moving on. We actually do have some pretty solid fight scenes here. Let me see if I can find it here. Because I do have some... Oh, maybe they did give her a full face mask. No, they didn't, based on that panel. I feel like it should be noted that this Batgirl, her suit isn't as high-tech as Batman, at least the Terry McGinnis Batman. It's interesting from the era you'd think about that. Now, with that being aside, what is up with the shoulder pads that are kind of sticking out? That's one kind of gripe I have about the costume. But it should be noticed that it's very similar to the modern day Batgirl that has sort of graced the pages in recent years. Sort of the Brendan Fletcher, Babs Tarr Batgirl. So I guess it makes sense from that perspective to give the uniform that kind of design. See, we get some classic Batman-like action there. Some glass breaking. I'm not really going to spoil the story too much. It gets a little girl power-ish, but I don't feel like it was, overbearing. It didn't feel like it was compensating. It's just kind of, sort of is. But ultimately, I don't really think this is the last that we're going to see of Batgirl Beyond. And as I said, this is really just a filler issue. It's nothing really to write home about. There's nothing to really roast about it. It's one of those things that just simply is. And but there could be some implications later on. It would be really interesting to see a Bat family Beyond, you could say. It'd be really cool to see, say, Nightwing show up or something. But I mean, for anyone that really knows anything about, the Batman Beyond mythos, that could be something that's a really interesting thing to explore. It'll be interesting to see how that's changed. Yeah, so that is Batman Beyond number 12. It came out a few months ago. I got a few more issues to go through. I'll try to read something with a little bit more substance to talk about. But yeah, check it out. Don't check it out. It is what it is.